In Bill 20, as I mentioned at the start, I think it's important that we get back to the principles on which the Act was founded back in 1915. The Meredith principles, they were sound then, and somehow we've strayed away from some of that. And we need to make sure that the Act is founded on good, solid principles like the Meredith principles. The bill here that's before us today is, I guess, in itself is not, is not bad for what's there, but there's a whole lot missing. There's a whole lot of things from the Dorsey report that are not there. Issues around universality, for example, are not in this particular bill anywhere that I could see. There's not a lot of support to change the medical evidence system where injured workers have to go and prove that before a doctor or a specialist that they're suffering from a particular affliction that prevents them from returning to their place of employment or at least prevents them from going back full time. I didn't see anything in the bill either around the help for widows. I can remember on the select committee when we went to Sydney, there were a lot of widows that came before us, widows of miners that had died in the mines, either through a direct workplace accident or through black lung disease or some other debilitating disease that now these widows were left on their own and without any compensation or very, very little help for them. So there's a number of things not in the bill, Mr. Speaker, that I feel would strengthen it, make it a better system, make the Act stronger. The second part of the bill is around occupational health and safety, and it mentions in this Act that this is going to be taken away from the Workers' Compensation Board. There's no mention of where it's going, or is it going to the Department of Environment and Labor, or is it going to a private company, or just where it's heading. So I just want to point out that I think we need a little further explanation on where occupational health and safety is going to end up. And I know it has in the past been with the Department of Environment and Labor, and but where it's going to be now, it's not too clear. The other thing I'll mention is that a lot of the specifics, a lot of the details are left I guess, to the government of the day to enforce through regulations. And, that can be changed at any moment, at any time. The cabinet of the day can decide that they like something or they don't like something, and they can add to it or even subtract from it. And so there's a lot missing in this bill that legislators here in this House, I think, should have the right to have some input into, but that's just not there. So there's too much, I believe, left to the will of the government of the day, and may end up supporting things that are not necessarily in the best interest of workers in this province. So I guess overall, Mr. Speaker, I've rambled on here about the workers' compensation bill for the last few minutes, but I think it's important that we make this bill as strong as we can. I'm looking forward when we go to the next stage at law amendments, and perhaps we can strengthen up what's here and make it even better, to make it fair, to make it balanced, and to make it work for employers, to make it work for workers, and in particular to make it work for injured workers, to make it work for all Nova Scotians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. The honourable member for Dartmouth East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a little bit of time to speak on Bill 20. Mr. Speaker, I have to be honest with you. As a new MLA, there are many issues that I'm trying to find out as much as possible on so I can speak in an informed manner. However, Mr. Speaker, at the same time, there's a sharp learning curve here at the House. There's a lot of information to try and read through and try and comprehend as best as you can so that you can speak in some sort of an educated way on certain topics. Mr. Speaker, I have been listening intently to the debate so far. Many of my colleagues have spoken out on Bill 20 with what I believe is an honest concern for the people of Nova Scotia. And I can certainly only hope that in the future I can speak as eloquently and with as much passion as they have been able to do. Mr. Speaker, I certainly will attempt to say as much as I can on this subject, which is, I believe, a very important issue with many people throughout the province. Mr. Speaker, after listening to the debate, I'm trying to find out what is the overall feeling, what's coming through here, what am I hearing? And one of the things I think I'm hearing, Mr. Speaker, is the typical old story of government inaction. Not inaction, but not inaction. Not taking action, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, how many committees have we seen? How many reports have we seen? How many recommendations have we seen? How many of these things do we have to see come before government will take action on these specific items, Mr. Speaker? It all sounds too familiar to me. When I was on the school board, there would be policies that would come through, reports, which, because of funding issues, we could not enact these said reports. I think I'm hearing the same sort of thing here. Mr. Speaker, I'm hearing about the lack of trust in government. It's no wonder that there's such a low voter turnout when we have our elections. Why would people come out to vote when they are wondering, well, you know, I volunteered for this committee, I volunteered for that committee, I've said my piece, I've worked hard, nothing is being done. So there's no wonder that people don't believe that government can work. Mr. Speaker, a lot of people have lost hope. They've lost hope that the government is out there listening to their concerns, and that once they've listened, they will act on these concerns. The people that are out there, Mr. Speaker, have real concerns that need to be addressed now by this government. Not in 6 months, not in regulations, but in a bill that speaks up for what the people of this province need. Regulations, Mr. Speaker, can be changed at any time by the government. What we need is a bill that protects injured workers' rights now. We need concrete steps to improve the lives of people who have been hurt on the job. We can't wait until the last minute to make these changes in policy that will help these people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will attempt to make the best, to do the best job I can to advocate for people on this issue.
That's why you get elected, Joan. That's why you get elected.
Mr. Speaker, it's unfair. It's unfair for injured workers to have to fight every step of the way. That's what I'm hearing from my colleagues. These stories that they're relating, that I'm listening to, and you can say fortunately or unfortunately enough, I have not had somebody come to my constituency office yet with one of these issues. And it's sad, it makes me sad to sit here and listen to my colleagues speak about real people in real pain. Mr. Speaker, many people do suffer from long-term chronic pain. This can be muscle damage, back pain, something that happened on the job. Mr. Speaker, people wake up every day in this province suffering from pain. They go to bed at night suffering from pain. They suffer. Mr. Speaker, you look like you're in pain there. You're, crunched up in that chair.
He's paying attention.
That might be a worker's injury there. I don't know. I try that one out. Mr. Speaker, but seriously, Mr. Speaker, it's true. People are suffering here, and this government has to do something about this ongoing problem. This kind of suffering that is long-term, that never goes away, can lead to things like depression. Depression doesn't only affect the person feeling the depression, but their family. And as one of my colleagues mentioned, this can spin off into your children's problems, your children can begin to act out at school. They have problems at school. Mr. Speaker, not all kinds of pain can be measured. You can't put somebody on a scale and say, I'm going to measure your pain. And then we'll tell you how much money you can receive for that amount of pain. It's not that easy. Not all suffering can be seen on an X-ray machine or on an MRI. Mr. Speaker, not every worker in this province is fortunate enough to have an employer that is going to look after them in the way that they should. Not everybody has extra medical coverage, insurance, that would make it possible for them to return to a job when they are 100% better. Mr. Speaker, some employers do provide a kind of atmosphere for workers to come back in an improved working environment. It might be something as simple as a new desk that they can sit at. Sometimes somebody may be employed in a job that they love, that they've been doing their whole life, that they trained to do, that is supporting them and their family, making their family life is, into something that they enjoy. And then they find out, as one of my colleagues spoke, they have carpal tunnel syndrome. Maybe they're a music teacher and they've been doing the same movements with their one arm, for 10, 15, 20 years. They can no longer do that job. They have to either be retrained or go into another line of work. It may be teaching. Maybe it's not a music teacher anymore. Maybe it's going to be an English teacher, a math teacher. These are the kinds of things that happen in this province. Sometimes workers won't be able to go back to the job that they were trained to do. Sometimes they're going to go into another line of work that maybe they're not going to enjoy as much because for whatever reason, they have no choice. They now have to do this other kind of job, which is maybe less strenuous in a way. Maybe if they've got back problems, long-term chronic pain with their back, they need a job where they're either going to, they might have to stand all day, they might have to sit. Mr. Speaker, the reason the government has boards, specifically workers' compensation boards, are to protect our injured workers. Some workers require a longer time to recover from an injury. Some may never, ever return to the way of life and the kind of health that they enjoyed previous to their injury. I guess a couple of my questions are, isn't it WCB's job to work for injured workers? Isn't that why those people go to work every day in those buildings throughout the province, is to work for injured workers? If everybody, all of a sudden tomorrow and from here on in, there were no injured workers, these people would be out of a job. So shouldn't they be doing everything they can within their power, within their training, to help injured workers? From what I've been hearing, there seems to be a roadblock. Now maybe it's the government that's put regulations in place to stop these people from doing what they know is right and just for injured workers. I'm not going to put the blame on government workers. Government are the people that should be taking the blame in this issue. Government are the people that are put in place to work for the other people of this province. We're here for the people of this province. WCB has got to find a way to improve what's going on down there and make things happen for injured workers in this province. Mr. Speaker, I've got the Nova Scotia Workers' Compensation Program booklet here. And, you know, there's a lot of information in here. You know, I've been listening to the debate, and I think I heard that this committee, the Dorsey Committee as it's known as, traveled around the province for, I think I heard, a year and a half. I could be wrong. And it seems to me they had many, many qualified members on this committee. Mr. Speaker, I want to read, if I can, just a little bit from the introduction of that report, if you want to call it. It's a focused review. In the introduction, it says, Nova Scotia's workplace health and safety and workers' compensation program is beginning to recover from the radical surgery of the 1990s. Profound changes were made because the integrity of the program had been drastically compromised. Before the 1990s, for whatever reason, incompetence, mismanagement, bungling, deceit, apathy, expediency, or indifference. There was a breach of faith workers and employers placed in government and the members of the Workers' Compensation Board. Because of that breach of faith, many injured workers and their families paid and continue to pay with reduced compensation benefits. Businesses paid and continue to pay through their annual assessments for the administration practices and suppressed assessment rates of the 1970s and 80s. Today, the Nova Scotia Workers' Compensation Program has the second lowest benefits in Canada and the second highest average assessment rate. It no longer has the second highest percentage of unfunded liability. And it goes on, Mr. Speaker, from there. Mr. Speaker, these people that worked so hard in producing this review made recommendations. Great, they made recommendations. We have to implement these recommendations. Why were these people sent out to travel the province, to talk to the concerned people, to get written submissions, to get verbal submissions? And I'm assuming a lot of these, most of these people, in fact, the injured workers themselves came to speak at these probably hearings. And perhaps their families came too. Again, we need to implement these. We need to implement these recommendations. How long does it take to implement recommendations in Nova Scotia? Your guess is as good as mine. Mr. Speaker, the Supreme Court ruling has made a decision that has struck down Nova Scotia legislation that previously had barred compensation payments to workers suffering from chronic pain syndrome. I won't read the definition of chronic pain syndrome, it's been done before. The Nova Scotia government has just 6 months to revamp its workers' compensation system. 6 months. I think they're going to be very busy. I hope while they're revamping that, they open up this little book here, Mr. Speaker, and implement some of these things here. Mr. Speaker, the Supreme Court is saying now that claims must be assessed on a case-by-case basis. Well, I'm new to this, but I'm wondering, what were they assessing people on before? Somebody else's injury and relating it to yours, or? I'm not sure on that, Mr. Speaker, and I'm going to try and find out the answer to that. Mr. Speaker, chronic pain is real. It's not imaginary. People suffering from chronic pain are not complainers. They're not people trying to get out of going to work. Compensation does not replace all your wages. You still have bills to pay, a mortgage to finance.
Real things, real people.
Your children need to go to school. Mr. Speaker, I think most people in here have children, grandchildren. They're, they need, they want to be in certain kinds of sports. They want to have the newest clothing items. you know, you want to do the best you can for your children. How do you think these people feel when they go to workman's comp, say they're injured, they're looking for help, they've paid into a system probably their whole working career, and then they're just told, we don't believe you. We don't believe that you're suffering, and either you're going to go back to work or we'll give you X amount of dollars, which isn't going to replace the amount of money that they enjoyed before and were used to. Mr. Speaker, it's not easy for people in this province to live with chronic pain. As I said, it's not imaginary. They are truly suffering. Mr. Speaker, in fact, you know, when I was listening to my other colleagues, I was thinking, well, you know, not wishing that I had somebody that had come to me with an injury so that I could relate that specific story. But then I recalled, I think it was just a week or so ago, I was on Spring Garden Road. And as you know, on Spring Garden Road, now there's a lot of people that are looking for handouts. And there's one gentleman, and he was probably 65. I don't know how old he was, Mr. Speaker. Hard to say, because when you're in pain for a long time, it does things to you. It changes your looks, your facial features. It changes a person. This man was sitting over on Spring Garden Road on a chair box, I don't know what, looking for money. He had injured his leg, and believe me, he said he was still going to fight. I gave him some names, people that he should call, and he said he could not live on the amount of money he was receiving, and this is what he ended up having to do, Mr. Speaker, was panhandle. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to sum up. Again, these people are truly suffering. They only want what they have the right to be treated fairly and in a respectful manner, Mr. Speaker, by this government. Thank you.
I recognize the Honourable Minister of Environment and Labour to close debate on Bill number 20. The Honourable Minister of Environment and Labour.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the members opposite for the discussion and the points that they brought up. We certainly have been listening to those, and I'm sure that we'll explore them more fully when we get to the law amendments portion of this bill. And I would, at this point in time, like to close reading and ask for second reading of the bill. Thank you.
Motion is for second reading of Bill number 20. Is the House ready for the... Order, please. The motion is for second reading of Bill number 20. There's been a request for a recorded vote. We'll ring the bells to the satisfaction of the whips. Satisfied? Yes. The motion is for second reading of Bill number 20. Is the House ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried.
20, entitled an act to amend Chapter 10 of the Acts of 1994-95, the Workers' Compensation Act, and Chapter 7 of the Acts of 1996, the Occupational Health and Safety Act.
Will this bill be referred to the Committee on Law Amendments? The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, could I have the consent of the House to revert the order of business tabling reports of committees?
Is it agreed? No. The answer is no. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move the House to now rise to meet again on Monday at the hour of 2 p.m. The House will sit from 2 until 10. The order of business will be public bills for third reading, public bills for second reading, and committee of the whole House. Mr. Speaker, I ask all members to enjoy their weekend and see you all on Monday.
Motion is the House adjourned until 2 p.m. on Monday. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The House adjourned until 2 p.m. Monday.